Hi, today I want to talk about the ESP32 and 100 ways to get your ESP32 board. And certainly this is not a complete and maybe there are some errors in the list, but I want to show you a small overview about all the products I found online with the ESP32. And if you know more ways to get your ESP32 on a board or you have some suggestions, please write it in the comments, and maybe if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up in the end of the video. And this video is based on an idea from a viewer, so you asked for it and here it is. So this is my full list of the 100 boards that I found, and I do this in a alphabetically order. So let's start with the first board from Adafruit. And this is the Wrover-32 feather board, and it fits to the whole feather series. And we can see here's a connector for a LiPo battery, the CP2104 for the USB to UART is installed. We have a reset button and also some MOSFETs for the automatic upload of your ESP32 firmware. So there's no need to press reset and the flash button. And what else? We have an ESP32 module installed, and that's it. Next, we have an ESP32 development board, and this is based on the design from Espressif, and we have also the ESP32 Vroom module in the Vroom factor, and we have an CP2102 and also a voltage regulator on the board. And we have two buttons, the flash and the reset button. Next, we have an ESP32 board from Pycom, and you can program this with Python. And this comes also with a LoRa chip, so you can use Wi-Fi and LoRa both together. And we have a small ceramic antenna here and also an antenna connector, and I think we have also a second connector for the Wi-Fi and also an RGB LED on this side. And I think there's no USB to UART bridge because there's also no USB connector, so we need some kind of USB to UART bridge. Next, we have the Pycom Wi-Pi 2.0, and this is some kind of ESP32 board, and we have also an RGB light and some kind of button, but also no USB to UART bridge, but we have a ceramic antenna and also an antenna connector. Next, I found on Alibaba this ESP32 development board, and I think this is also based on the design from Espressif. One highlight is the external antenna, and we have also an external antenna connector to this. And I think also we have a LiPo battery connector and some kind of charging circuit. Next, we have an ESP based development board with just the CP2102, and this is marked as a product from Do It. Next, we have a Node MCU ESP32 development board, and this looks also based on the Espressif design. Next, another Do It ESP32 development board, and it looks very similar to the other designs from this kind of board. The CP2102 UART bridge and an AMS1117 voltage regulator. Next, we find many boards on AliExpress now, maybe this one. It also looks like the standard design from Espressif. We have an ESP32 module, the AMS1117 voltage regulator, the CP2102 standard, and a kind of auto reset and flash circuit, and the two buttons and a micro USB connector. And that's it. And we have on AliExpress this Lollen ESP32 Wemos board, and this have a very small form factor, but also on the back side you see the micro USB connector, the voltage regulator, and also maybe the CP2102 UART bridge. And here are more DoIT ESP32 development boards, as you see, with the voltage regulator and the UART bridge. And here you see the next kind of board. It's have a small other design, but looks very similar to the other boards. And this is an Arrival TTGO ESP32 board with an Arduino Duo form factor, with an power jack, plug in the USB micro connector, an FTTI UART bridge, and also voltage regulator and some kind of other chips, maybe for protection. And we have this Wemos ESP32 development board with a battery connector on the back side for an 18650 battery, but the rest looks very similar, and maybe you have also some kind of LiPo charging circuit on this board. And maybe this switch is for the battery, so you can switch it on or off while powering from the 18650 battery. And you can also buy your boards from Amazon. And this is also a normal development board for the ESP32 with all the standard components. And we have another ESP32 development board, Maker Focus, the name, and this is called Geek Worm. And we have the CH340 UART bridge. And also from Amazon you get the SparkFun ESP32 thing, and SparkFun designed their own boards with the FTTI chip and also with an onboard antenna and also with an LiPo battery connector and charging circuit. Next, you can purchase this ESP32 Wrover-KIT, and this is have an JTAG interface and also an SD card, an RGB light, a power jack, and also the highlight on the back side. There's a 3.2 inches LCD display, as you see. Next, from Analog Lamp you can get this ESP32 development board, and this have no metal shielding, and you can see the bare chips on this board and also the flash memory. You have the voltage regulator and also the CP2102 UART bridge. Next, this board is for the ESP32, but you don't get a real ESP32 module, but you can put the module in this fixture and program it, then release it from this fixture and ship it around the world. So this is for everyone who program their ESP32 modules and ship them around. Also from Analog Lamp we have this Maple ESP32 Arduino kind board, and this have the Arduino Duo form factor, and we have a LiPo connector, a USB micro connector and the UART bridge, the AMS1117 voltage regulator. You have an SD card connector and also all the pins like the Arduino. And also from Arrow you can purchase this low-pi board with the LoRa interface and the ESP32 Wi-Fi connection and also Bluetooth. And I don't think you have any USB to UART bridge, so you have to buy this separate. Next ESP32 board is this SciPi 14 dBm, and you can also buy this from Arrow. And also this SciPi 22 dBm board. And also this Python based board YPi 2.0 with the ESP32 and also an RGB LED light. Next vendor is Banggood, and Banggood also sell this ESP32 test fixture where you can insert your ESP32 modules and program them and then easily remove them and program the next one. And Banggood also sell this ESP32 development boards with the expressive design type with the UART bridge and also voltage regulator and a micro USB connector. And you've seen this before, the Geek-Crite, or this is the Geek-Worm board with a CH340 UART bridge. And also from Banggood you can get these Wemos Lolin ESP32 board with an OLED display, and you have the OLED display on the front and all the other circuits for programming and so on the back side. And you see this also before, the Wemos Lolin small board, and you can get this also from Banggood. And as we see, all the programming circuit is on the back side of the board. And another Wemos board with a small form factor. It looks similar to the SparkFun board, with also the FTDI chip for the UART bridge and also an PCB antenna. And I think the two wires are for connecting the LiPo battery to this connector. And another ESP32 Wemos board in the Arduino Duo form factor with a power jack and the micro USB connector and an FTDI chip, and more Wemos boards with the ESP32 from Banggood. And this one is, we've seen this before, with the 18650 cell connector for powering your ESP32. And on Crowd Supply we get this Hornbill ESP32 based boards, and if we scroll down we only see this ESP32 development board with an LiPo connector and an polyfuse maybe. I think this is an fuse, and I don't see the other boards in this picture from above. So if you like to see a round board, then look at this web page from the Crowd Supply and Hornbill. And DF Robot also sells ESP32 development boards, and this one have an FTDI chip for the UART bridge and also a LiPo charging circuit. But I have no clue why we have here an external crystal. And as you see, DF Robot seems to produce their own ESP32 modules. And also Digi-Key sells ESP32 development boards. This one from Adafruit, and we have the LiPo connector and the UART bridge, the CP2104 UART bridge, and an ESP32 Vroom module. And on Digi-Key you can also purchase this PiCom boards, the low Pi with the lower chip, and also the ESP32 for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And you can also buy this Olimex Rover board, and on the one side you have many connectors for the GPIOs, the JTAG FTDI chip, an RGB LED, an SD card connector, and on the back side there's an 3.2 inches LCD display. And on Digi-Key you can also buy this ESP32 thing board from SparkFun with the FTDI chip and all the rest of the ESP32 circuit and also the flash memory on one board and without any module and also shielding. Also from Digi-Key you can buy this Python board, the YPi 2.0 with the ESP32 and also an RGB LED and the ceramic antenna and an external antenna connector. And from eBay you can also buy your ESP32 board, this Duet ESP32 development board with the CP2102 and then voltage regulator and micro USB connector. And this is only a small sample of all the boards from eBay. So here we have an ESP32 development board with a expressive kind of layout. Or this one, or this from another seller from GC Supermarket, or this one from Horizon Electronic, or this one from Govin Electronic, or here another sample from Deep Learnings from the eBay platform, or also this Wemos Lolin board with a small form factor, but you don't get every ESP32 GPIO pins in this, certainly. And another offer on eBay from this seller, and it looks similar to the other Wemos boards. Or you can buy this from eBay, this Node MCU board with the ESP32, or this Wemos LOLEN32 development board with also the CP2104 and an LiPo charging connector. And from Eckstein Komponente, you can order this board with an 0.96 inches OLED display. And we've seen this before. The USB to UART bridge is on the back side. And I think we don't have every GPIO pin, but this is not needed because most of the pins are maybe for the OLED display and also for the flash memory. So this is only the available GPIO pins. And also on Eckstein we have this Windora Air version 5.0 Node MCU board, and it have an easy to use, breadboard friendly form factor, and also everything on one board and no module. And what I like is the 2104 UART bridge, because this is a little bit faster than the 2102, and you can flash your firmware with the speed of 2 megabits. Next on Eckstein we have this Himalaya ESP32 development board with an LiPo connector. And we have also 2 LEDs on the sides. And on the Eckstein shop you can also order this Picom low-pi board with the LoRa chip and also an RGB LED. And the PCB mounted ceramic antenna and also an antenna connector. And the next ESP32 board is this Sigfox Picom board called SciPi. So you can connect your ESP32 through the Sigfox network. And also on Eckstein we have this Node MCU called Tiny Arduino board X32, but it looks similar, I think, to the so-called Wemos LOLEN board. And we have all the components on the back side and the ESP32 on the front, or vice versa, like you look on the board. Also on Electro Dragon you can buy or order your ESP32 development kit. It looks like the Espressif design or similar to the Espressif design. And maybe if you order thousands of boards, then you can go to Espressif and also order this WROVER-KIT board. I think this is designed by Olimex. You can also buy this from Espressif direct, and this have the 3.2 inches LCD panel on the back side. And this is the ESP32 development kit C, version C or revision C. And you see this have the CP2102 chip, the micro USB connector, and also an AMS 1117 voltage regulator on board, and the 2 push buttons. And it looks very similar to all the other boards on the market. And mainly for the market on India, I find this Wemos LOLEN32 board on the Fab to Lab side. And we have the ESP32 development board with an LiPo connector. And if you want to do some crowdfunding, you can find this ESP32 board or based board with an Sterling Spartan 6 FPGA on the Indiegogo website. And if you prefer Mauser, you can buy this Adafruit ESP32 development board, wireless user 32, and it have an LiPo charger on board. Or you prefer this SparkFun board from Mauser, then you can buy this also with an LiPo connector on board. Or you want to buy from Olimex, then you can buy this ESP32 development board based on the Espressif design. Or maybe you need a board with an Ethernet connector and also some relays on board and more connectors to do some hardware switching. And also there's an micro SD card connector, an infrared detector, and maybe also an infrared sender on board. We have a LiPo connector, the USB to UART bridge from FTTI, and a micro USB connector. And this is the back side of the board with some decent track spacing between the relay connectors. And this is from Olimex, the WROVER-KIT, and you've seen this before on the Espressif website and also on analoglamp.com. This is the board with many connections around the JTAG interface, the power jack, some RGB LEDs, an SD card connector, and also the 3.2 inches LCD display. And here we have on Proto Central the SCALEM32 development board. And this board have the Arduino Duo form factor with 3 RGB LEDs, 2 touch sensors or capacitive touch sensor pads, the ESP32 on board, and flash memory. I think this is FTTI chip for the UART bridge. And I certainly think you can also buy the PyCom boards direct from PyCom. And this is the low-pi with the integrated LoRa chip and the ESP32. And this one is the SciPi, the Sigfox network combination with the ESP32. And as you see, you have 2 antenna connectors and you have an SMD soldered antenna on board and also an RGB LED for indicating some status. And here we have the Wi-Fi 2.0 ESP32 based Python development board, and also we have a connector for an external antenna and also an RGB LED and the SMD antenna. And I find this RGB Lychee board from Renisas. The main purpose for this board is for video processing, so you have a big FPGA on board. And I don't see this module before, but this seems also be some kind of ESP32 module, because here on the website there's also an indicator for the ESP32. Seed Studio also sell these PyCom chips with a Wi-Fi, with a bare ESP32 and an external antenna connector, the SMD antenna, and also the RGB light. And we've seen this SparkFun ESP32 thing before, and you can also order this direct from SparkFun. And we have seen this have a LiPo connector, the FTTI UART bridge, and some kind of PCB antenna. And if you looking for bare ESP32 PCBs with some special functionality, you can have a look into the Sunduino ESP32, but I'm not really sure what is the purpose of this board. Maybe some viewer can write this into the comments. And also on Tindie we can buy ESP32 developments board, and this is all kinds of boards with a special purpose. This one is with an OLED display, and I think we have seen some clones of this maybe on AliExpress and eBay or so. And it seems there's 2 different versions of this board, one with a larger form factor and one with a smaller form factor. And also on Tindie we have this board from Microwave-Mont, and as you see, we have also an integrated OLED display. We have an audio connector and 2 I2S microphones, and also an TDA PCM 5102 digital to analog converter. And on the back side we have the ESP32 module. Next board, also from Microwave-Mont on Tindie, is this audio development board for the ESP32. And you have also some audio I2S DACs from TI, and also a 1.3 inches OLED display. And this is the next board from microwave mount on Tindie, the CAN board with also an OLED display, and I think the main focus is on the CAN bus. And another ESP32 development board based on the FTTI UART bridge with also some RGB LEDs and 2 push buttons. And if you prefer an ESP32 board with a color OLED display, then you can have a look at this board from Microwave Mont. And also it's capable of charging a LiPo and runs from a LiPo battery. Or look at this board with an OLED display and also a LiPo charging circuit. And here we have another ESP32 development board, all integrated in one board. We have here an FTTI UART bridge chip, and this board have a very small form factor, as you see, and the USB micro connectors on the back side. So if you need a very small board, you can have a look at this board. Here you have the analoglamp.com board, also offered on Tindie, and we've seen this before. This is the board with a CP2102 UART bridge. And we have this ESP32 monster board with an Ethernet connector, an OLED display, and also a CAN bus. And you can also connect a LiPo battery to this board. And if you want to buy a web radio, then you can have a look at this board, also from Microwave Mont, with an OLED display, and you have a rotary encoder, also an integrated Class D amplifier with an I2S bus. Here we have a power jack connector, you have the mini USB connector and an FTTI chip. And I think you get this board without the plexiglass attachment. And also on Tindie we find this ESP32 development board, and the soldered module seems to have an external antenna connector and also a small SMD antenna. So you have both of the options. And if you need an ESP32 development board with an integrated RGB LED, you can have a look at this board from Kilobyte. And if you need some kind of solder pins for your ESP32 development, you can have a look at this board from the April brother on Tindie. And maybe we can have a look at the backside. At the backside we see the ESP32 module. And also on Tindie we find this analog lamp maple ESP32 board with the Arduino Duo form factor, the SD card, and also a LiPo connector. And here another ESP32 board with an 18650 LiPo battery, and also with an on-off switch and also a charging circuit. And also on Tindie we find this X32 board with a few GPIO pins and the module on the front or backside, like you wish, and all the circuit is on the backside. And here on Water Rod I find this ESP32 Vroom breakout board with some kind of metal shielded push buttons and also I think the CP2102 UART bridge. And this Espressif ESP32 core board looks similar to the Espressif design, I think. Also with a CP2102 UART bridge. And if you prefer to program in Python, you can buy this LowPy, LoRa and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi PyCom board. Or if you prefer Sigfox, you can buy this Python board from PyCom with the Sigfox and the ESP32 with the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connection. Or you need only Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, then you can have a look at this PyCom board, the YPi 2.0, with also an RGB LED and the SMD antenna and also an external antenna connector. And from Wemos you can also buy direct this LOLEN32 board. And here you see some picture with the LiPo connector, the CP2104 chip for 2 megabit flash upload speed. And here we have board number 100, last but not least, an ESP32 board with integrated LoRa chip and also 2 antennas, as you see, one large antenna for LoRa and a smaller antenna for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And this is from WROVER-KIT, the WROVER-KIT ESP32 N1 board. So that's it for today. If you have some more information about other boards, please write it in the comments, or if I'd done some mistake, just correct me and write it in the comments. So I hope you find this useful or even interesting and maybe learn something. Thanks for watching today. I wish you a nice day. See you next time and bye bye.